Help me, y'all. Help me, y'all. Pray for me. And also pray for the PGA Tour Commissioner, Jay Monahan. Man, this dude shamelessly sidesteps questions about the relationship that Live Golf is going to have now with the PGA Tour and how the Saudis could control pro golf around the world. So we know that was one of the biggest news stories of the year. The PGA Tour and DP World Tour agreed to merge with Live Golf. Now, I never heard of DP World Tour before this, but must be doing big things out there because they're a part of this deal as well. Now, according to the press release, the merger will form a new collectively owned for-profit entity. Remember, a lot of these are nonprofits typically. Even the NFL had that status forever, right? And the development stunning came after a year of them out there gang banging against each other. And the tensions were flaring, and the character assassinations were left and right, and the mountain lawsuits. They had it all going between the PGA and the LIV. The Crips and the Bloods. And a startup tour, controversially, was backed by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, the PIF. Now, that thing is $600 billion strong. So don't play around with that money right there. And big bank don't take little bank as it did in this situation. So they did an interview, and this is the angle I really want to attack this, because we talked about the story before, kind of top level, like, wow, look at this. But now let's dig into a little bit of the character of the story if we can. One of the angles is we saw a segment where Monahan was being interviewed, and they asked him, did he have a response to the people who will now claim the Saudis control golf around the world? Fair question. And he said, you're describing a scenario under which PIF at some point could have the majority of the economics. Correct me if I'm wrong. Of this entity, that's what the interviewer was asking. Essentially, the Saudis, people will say, they control golf around the world. I'm just curious as to what you think the response is going to be. And here goes Monahan. A lot of people have been reading about the tension, right? And I've said previously that we're going down our path. They're going down theirs. And today, that tension goes away. Oh, this boy been a PR 101. The litigation is dropped. We're announcing to the world that on behalf of this game, we're coming together. It's less about how people respond today, and it's all about how people respond in 10 years. I'm going to stop right here, because that was genius. You know why it's genius? Because he's almost telling you to table your emotions right now, because the more mature version of you 10 years from now will look at this differently. So now he's making you engage in battle of thought with yourself. Not even the story anymore, not even the facts anymore. Just like, hey, relax. Because you know in 10 years, you're not going to think the same. Not going to tell you what to think, but it's not going to be the same. So you spare the judgment in this moment. That was brilliant. Let's get back into it. And when they see the impact that we're having on this game together, there will be a lot of smiles on people's faces, and there will be a lot more people playing this game all over the world. And if you're a young player that wants to get to the highest level of the game today, you'll be a lot more inspired than you've ever been before. Sounds good, except Phil Mickelson, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, etc. have been shamed for being in the position of ambassador for the Saudi royal family, for supporting Live Golf, for defecting, as they said, assisting the regime in sports washing their human rights abuses. You hear that? They literally claimed them as being sports washers for their human rights abuses. Yes, that is deep. That means like all their sins, they use you as a shield, and they use you to kind of cleanse that story from everyone else. Crazy, right? Excuse I. Monahan himself similarly chastised professional golfers for opting to take the Saudis' money. Yeah, y'all took the money and ran. And guess what Monahan's now doing? Running right behind him. Crazy. And then last year, remember this part, there was a 9/11 survivors group that spoke out against Live, citing the Saudi ties to the 2001 terrorist attacks and believing the tour's participants were betraying the United States. I said this before. I'm going to say this again. Okay. No one is trying to untangle the Saudi Arabian ties to 9/11, but are we really going to be that lazy and simple and just group all things to Saudi Arabia and 9/11? Like all Saudi Arabian entities and interests. Always have to go back to that, because if that's the case, look at every ethnic group and look at all of their sins, including Americans as well. You imagine if that was the way? Like every single time you go back to that moment. I don't even have to give you examples because we know there are examples. But the point is, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. And we don't want this done. All right. So in response, Monahan attempted to sell the PGA Tour's ethics and morality by using the 9/11 families who were upset with the LIV Tour coming to the United States. Have you ever had to apologize for being a member of the PGA Tour? Is one of the questions he kind of rhetorically asked everyone. Man, this dude really went there. And in a year span, flip-flopped 180 on them, right? So now his moral compass has changed directions, obviously, and the Saudis now appear to control professional golf, and Monahan expects the merger with LIV to put smiles on people's faces, which we all know in summation is some gross hypocritical reversal from his previous stance, which lets you know that previous stance wasn't authentic, wasn't real, right? It was just what he had in leverage, or what he assumed he had in leverage in terms of protecting his interests. See how selfish people are? And I get it. Look, it's money involved, so you can hide behind the money. And in business, economics trumps ethics in business. And that's why a lot of people say, oh, well, it's just business. It's almost like they can put this force field out there, this shield, like, oh, it's just business, so leave it alone, right? And I'm sorry, what I said before doesn't add up to what I'm doing now, but hey, it's just business. I'm just following the money. I'm following the interests and the principle. I'm following my interests, right? So big bank takes little bank in this story. And it's just sad that the players were used really like political pawns almost. The characters were attacked. We talk about those guys. And a year is a long time to talk bad about somebody, especially when you're going to flip-flop in that same year. And they were just hypocrites in this situation, using those players as collateral damage. Like, those players were literally used just to negotiate. Instead of just talking about the terms, they talked about these people. And now you don't get that opportunity to get that back. You can move forward, but their reputation's already been sullied. It's crazy, man. So that's the world we live in right now in terms of golf. And I brought this story back because I was just at the LA Country Club, LACC, where the U.S. Open is, and got to go to an event, Tiger Woods Foundation event, got to walk the greens, got to see a bunch of people, took pictures with the trophy. I've done that before. I posted that on social. So golf is always near and dear to my heart because that was the first sport I ever played. Yep. Take a look at me. Yes, 1979, my butt, before football, before track, before basketball, before those typical sports from the hoods. I was out there on that golf course, Rancho Park Golf Course. So much respect to golf, and hopefully this does lead to where Monahan thinks it's going. I agree. Like, the influx of money, the support. Hey, why are we going to beef and go laterally when we could just merge and go ahead? Hey, let's work together. Make sure golf is where it should be.